You're listening to The Good Pod Guide, where I, journalist and podcast fangirl Lauren Windle, bring you the lowdown on the pods you should be listening to. So there's two things that I absolutely love in a man. One is someone who's funny, and that's just because everyone likes someone who's funny. And if you're going to spend a load of time with someone, they might as well make you laugh. And the second is someone who's tall. And I think that's because I'm short. I'm like 5'3" almost. And I've got it in my head that if I end up with a guy who's really tall, then at least our kids will balance out and be normal height. And I think that that's just, evolution. So that's my rationale for favouring tall men. Anyway, someone who is both funny and very tall is Peter Crouch. And we are talking about the Peter Crouch podcast today. He is, for those who don't know, of which I could easily be one, but I'm not on this occasion, is a former England football player. He has this podcast where he discusses sport and general entertainment with his co-hosts Chris Stark and Tom Fordyce. He offers insights for football fans into details like the dressing rooms, the transfers, the managers, and these sort of football confessions. And I don't really follow the careers or lives of football players on the whole, but I do remember stuff about Peter Crouch. I think that's because he's so funny. I remember when some cricket player, whose name I can't remember, said to some other, also, I don't know their name, cricket player, "How come you're so fat?" And he replied, "Because every time I shag your mum, she gives me a biscuit." And I remember thinking, maybe I should watch some more sport because that's pretty funny. Also, Peter Crouch, when interviewed, would asked, "What would you be if you weren't a footballer?" To which he famously replied, "A virgin." So I rate him very, very highly. He's very funny. Here are a couple of quotes of the kind of chat on offer on this podcast. Sean Derry, presumably another football player, but I don't know, would insist on being sick before every game, by which I mean, if the nerves hadn't naturally made him sick, he would stick his fingers down his throat and do the job himself. At the risk of stating the obvious, it really killed the Portsmouth dressing room vibe. Superstitions aren't designed to make sense. Before England games, John Terry would refuse to touch the ball with his feet in the dressing room. I said dressing gown there. Sorry. I don't know if he was wearing a dressing gown, although he could have been in a dressing room. Every time the ball came near him, he'd freak out. A rolling ball would see him lift both feet off the floor like an old deer with a mouse. Brilliant anecdotes there from Crouchy. As a vague football fan, there's a lot I don't know the context of, and I don't know the people. But the one thing I do remember is his infamous goal-scoring robot celebration dance, which made him a bit of a cult hero. And they do discuss the birth of that too. It's career highlights, but it's not all really funny. I listened to a bit where Peter talked about being bullied in school and using humor as a defense mechanism, and then getting respect for being better at football and how that helped him navigate sort of his young life, which was really moving, actually. And I think that people who hear that kind of chat in amongst the comedy, people who come for the sport and comedy, but stuff like that is actually really edifying, really helpful. So I'm pleased he includes it. There are 5 seasons, 12 episodes, and they're each about an hour long. I don't know how many times I can say in this review that I'm not a football fan, but I'm not a football fan. But I did enjoy this. So I can't imagine how wild some of the football fanatics would go for this kind of backstage pass banter. It's actually made it onto my faves list, and I think it should be on yours too. In the next episode, we all get investment advice more detailed than buy low, sell high, as we talk about podcast stacking Benjamins. You can get more info on the show online at www.goodpodguide.com or follow us at goodpodguide on Instagram and Twitter.